run it. Hit the field, blast off, watch a mom fall. This is AFC North talk. Got me hype, it's about to be a touchdown. Got the Ravens, Steelers, Bengals, and the Browns. Are you listening? It's time to get it hype. Tune in when the season poppin'. Yeah, we going live. Hey, knock 'em out. Ay, first down, going hard. Yes, indeed. AFC North talk. Let's go. Hey, AFC North talk.
Welcome to another edition of AFC North Talk. Here we are. Wait. I need to distribute this a little bit.
Yeah. Nope. Not me and you.
Me and you are in the same place, bro.
I wouldn't know. We're in third. You're in fourth.
How are you in third? It's the same thing.
We're in third, bro.
Both of us are losers against the AFC.
Hey, when you check out the standings, it says Bengals third.
Because of alphabetical order?
No, not alphabetical order. No, it's Bengals third, bro.
It is alphabetical order.
Order.
You're making the same argument. I'm like, the Browns are only below the Bengals right now because of alphabetical order.
No. The Browns on other sites were like third, fourth, or like but nah. It's okay.
Anyway,
it's all right.
It doesn't matter. You know what? I was in the corner all summer. I'll give Ace the top 4.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, my guys. I hated my life on Saturday. Not gonna lie, I was not happy. Let's start with a super chat here from Play Under the Review. Bruh is right for me too. You know what?
Bruh is definitely a word that was said a lot on Sunday. More than just me.
Hey,
the Bill Belichick said before, I think is completely fair. Defensive pass interference and OPIs, for that matter, we don't care, should be challengeable. Go ahead, Q. Sorry.
I mean, I feel great. Of
course you do.
I bet you do.
I don't know what's going on down there in Cincinnati or over there in Baltimore, Maryland, but I do know that the Browns were able to go down south and get a victory against the Jacksonville Jaguars. But hey, man, I really wouldn't be that down if I were you two. You guys ran up against unstoppable forces this week for your guys' team, because we all know Gardner Minshew is unbeatable for the Baltimore Ravens. And look, man, even when Pat Mahomes throw 2 interceptions, you can't do nothing about it. I guess it's Pat. Like, was it Pat or was it PAT? I don't know. Something happened there with Cincinnati, but they haven't won in Arrowhead since they've made that Burrowhead comment, and you wonder, did they fly too close to the sun? Was this their Clippers Golden State Warrior moment where it looks like it's going to be the rivalry for the next generation, and then all of a sudden this thing turns one side? Are we going to be talking about this like the Bills-Chiefs rivalry? Remember how that was a real one for a little bit?
Nah, they never ended up doing anything and winning the Arrowhead. Nobody ever has been able to do it other than the guys from Cincinnati.
But that was what, 2 years ago?
See, when Pat does it, when Pat has won,
we've done it. I don't think anybody else has done it in the AFC except Tom Brady and Joe Burrow. No one else has done it.
That's true. But when Pat's winning 2 championships back to back, it kind of just takes the sting off all that. Like,
that sting ain't gonna hurt for them more than it will if we end that 3-peat in January. So they can have this little game, which everybody.
Oh, now
everybody in the world doesn't think that they really won the game. So that's fine. But I'd rather have the one later.
Okay, so let me. We have 2 super chats, and since we're discussing more of that Bengals game, we'll start with the Bengal game. Okay, let me do the 2 super chat. Sorry, Sonny, love the Ravens, but love Lamar more. Hey, Q, I want to be a Browns fan with Lamar at QB. What you think about that? Also, can we get Belichick to replace Harbaugh? By the way, that's a stand that you see on Ravens Twitter right now. Belichick for Harbaugh.
Yeah, they want to fire Harbaugh bad right
now.
Oh,
my God. And we'll talk about it soon. The 188, shout out to you, man. Let's schedule the parade for Q. His 230 million QB actually had an average game. That's pretty much his ceiling at this point. That's all they needed.
Hey, bro, I'm shocked he could talk and type with all that in his mouth.
Mm.
Mm.
And then look at this, Nova Stone. TB12 is the only QB that knows how to be Mahomes. That's you baited to that, Ace.
I did not bait to that because we
You
beat him
said Tom
before.
Brady, and you brought as soon as Tom Brady.
No. I'm saying that Tom Brady, the last time any other quarterback in the AFC
Yeah, I
wasn't
got
getting ruled by the Chiefs, it was Tom Brady. Like nobody other than Tom Brady and Joe Burrow have ever beat Pat Mahomes.
But my point is, as soon as Brady's whispering this pod,
Oh yeah. As soon as I say the word Brady, yeah. Oh yeah, it's like Beetlejuice. Whenever you say the word Brady,
that's one.
super chat pops up from Novastone.
Do you guys remember? It was one time we were talking here about Taylor Heineke, and we start getting bots from Taylor Swift. You guys don't remember that? The super chatted bots.
I think I do remember the Taylor Swift, and that was before she was with Travis Kelce.
Yeah, this is random. Random.
That was pre Kelce.
Yep. Anyway, so one last one. Tom Brady beating Patty twice.
Well, Sonny, it wasn't random. You are a Taylor Swift fan. Like you didn't bring that into the conversation.
In this house, I have 3 huge Swifties. So by default, I know some Swiftie songs.
By default, we're gonna have to check that Spotify rap playlist that Sonny's got over there.
You got to post that. You got to post that.
I don't think you understand my playlist. It's all Hispanic music. But anyway, let's talk about these Bengals.
I know Taylor Swift made Spanish music.
She might. I don't know. She might. Let's talk about the Bengals Chiefs. Obviously, it was the marquee game of the week. It wasn't Sunday night, but for our conference, definitely the main show was that one. The Bengals were talking all week leading to that game. To be fair, that defense, for the most part, backed that talk. They played great. Offensively, they played good. I mean, actually, they played good because I think people diminish how good that Chiefs defense is. I think people forget that the Chiefs defense, although they lost Snead, is still a good defense. It's still a really good defense. It's a strong defense. But they came short on a controversial call that I will agree here with the Bengals fan because I might hate all my divisional opponents, but I can be objective and say that was a shitty call. And the problem that I see is when you have a game with Kansas City or against any marquee player or franchise, you have to win. And if there's any 50-50 call, which in my opinion, that wasn't a 50-50 call, but let's assume it was a 50-50 call, it's always going to lean to that team. It will lean to the Kansas City Chiefs, right? Something that Cam Newton talked when he was a rookie, and then the ref said, like, oh, you haven't earned those calls, right? So it is unfortunate. It sucks. I don't have the stats in front of me, but when I was watching the game, at least the game plan felt more balanced, Ace. Again, I don't have the stats in front of me. I feel like the Bengals were trying not to just be chucking pass. I saw some creativeness in the game plan. I don't know if it was because, again, the Chiefs. 3 picks. Obviously, when you pick Pat Mahomes 3 times, you should put more points, in my opinion. You should convert on those because those don't come normally, right? But anyway, what do you saw? I know it was painful because I'm going to go with my pain later. What do you saw in that game?
Yeah, Pat Mahomes had 2 interceptions. They did have a fumble, though. That happened. When I watched this game, I thought like literally the entire game, the Bengals were in control. Like I can't say that about some of the previous matchups when it comes to the Bengals and the Chiefs. I knew that this was going to be a close game. The games are always close. We talk about every game being won by 3 or less points in every kind of moment. This was one where I was kind of wondering what Bengals team would show up. We've seen the slow starts. We've seen them look kind of shaky to start the season. This is now 3 years in a row that they're starting off 0-2. This one was one that I was a little shocked at how prepared they came out for this game. I kind of talked last week and I said, well, it seemed to me the way that team came out last week that they were kind of looking ahead towards this game. And the game plan that they used, I will have to give Zach Taylor and company credit, was pretty good because this hasn't been a Bengals team that has really relied on the tight ends. They haven't been a team similar to the Ravens, I would say, that kind of utilize that 12 and stuff like that, right? They're usually 11 personnel. This was one of the first times, I think, in the Zach Taylor era that the Bengals ranked in like the bottom 3 or 4 of the NFL in terms of 11 personnel. They use a lot of 12 personnel in this one. They use a lot of tight ends. They actually
your
created
mic is going up and down.
Hey, so are you on your headphone audio or are you on your microphone? Because it sounds like you're on your AirPods right now.
Should be on. Hold on.
While you check, I'm gonna go read some super chats. Okay, that way we
Gotcha.
Voldigard.
Is it still? Does it sound okay now or no?
It sounds good. It sounds good now. I'm for Rio Q Lamar for the Sean straight up. Let's go Browns, man. This is. I don't know if he's a Raven. He can't be a Ravens fan. The 188 Q being mad since they don't change the fact that 230 million busy you that average performance. Go ahead and celebrate. LOL.
Huh?
Yeah, we are 0. I mean, he's a Bengals fan, so the Bengals are 0-2. So yes, the Browns should celebrate over at least the Ravens and the Bengals.
Yeah, well, he's a Bengal fan and he's talking like that.
Yeah, the 188 is a Bengals fan.
I don't know if the 188 is a Bengals fan. He might be a Steelers fan.
Steelers fan.
Right?
You're right. He's a Steelers
fan. Okay. It like who was celebrating? Like did I start the show with the parade?
He hasn't.
This is what I'm saying. That's dick riding. You creating grievances to be mad at me about that have not even happened. Please stop it. Not healthy.
Shafiqul says loss on Joe. The fumble to TD hurt us big time. And then last one, and I'll throw it to you, Ace. As I said last week, Sonny, year 2 of a new OC can hit a little different when the DC have an off-season to study you. Monkey is still a question mark. I mean, the offense put the points. But anyway, go ahead, Ace.
Worse in year 2 of your OC? That's the logic?
That's what he says, because the defense are going to catch up to you. Go ahead.
Yeah, all right, so for me, like, typical Chiefs Bengals game, very close. This one was more so the Bengals were kind of in the lead to kind of control this one, right? But they utilized the tight ends, which the Bengals never do. I've had countless posts where I've looked at numbers and stuff like that, where the Bengals, is it still weird?
Yeah, it's like there's a noise gate.
All right. Let's just we'll go with my camera mic and see if that works better. Can you guys hear me? Is it okay?
It's not the mic itself. I think there's an issue with the software on the streaming platform. So like uncheck your remove background noise. I think that's what's causing the problem.
Is that it?
So you go back to your regular microphone. I think it was an
okay. Yeah, I just there. So so we're good to go. So yeah, this one was more so a game plan around the tight ends. Utilizing the tight ends in this one, which was a little different from what we've done before, which is usually utilizing the wide receivers and stuff like that. So in this one, I felt like the Bengals were in control. I think the defense played well, forcing Pat Mahomes into those interceptions. Only person that I heard talking this week was CTB. CTB was the one that made the play. Outside of a Rashee Rice touchdown, the Chiefs weren't able to really do anything on offense the entire game. I mean, they were able to make Pat Mahomes look extremely human. I mean, that is Pat Mahomes' second worst game of his career is what he had. 150 yards, 2 interceptions. So we were able to do what we needed to do against Pat Mahomes. The issue was instead of taking those 3 that the Bengals were getting, they needed to be coming away with 7. And that was, to me, the biggest issues with them in that game. You talk about the Joe Burrow fumble. That was a big part of the game. However, it wasn't the game itself, right? So, like, the Bengals end up getting that big interception from Cam Taylor-Britt. You like to see that converted into points. The thing about that play is before Joe Burrow even fumbles, he ends up having a drop from Mike Gesicki to play before that, where it's actually for a first down. So after they don't do that, he ends up fumbling. They take it back. And at first it was a weird play, but when you actually saw it from another angle, it was clear that Joe Burrow fumbled. So there's no controversy there on that fumble. But after that, the Bengals were able to get the ball back, get a field goal. They were able to watch the punts happen. Is the mic still messed up?
Yeah.
It is, but just power through it. We got to figure it out.
Yeah.
Later.
So, I don't know what that is. But Yeah, we were able to work through those situations with the punts and stuff like that. And when it gets to the end of the game, this is a situation where you feel like the Bengals are going to be able to pull this one out, especially when it gets to the fourth down. You get Trey Hendrickson, who was a monster in this game, by the way. Trey Hendrickson literally got that rookie on the other team, Suamata, or however you say his name, got that kid benched. They brought in a backup. That guy was getting flags for holding calls as well. Almost wins the game on a Trey Hendrickson hold to force it to 4th and 16. We know what happens on 4th and 16. My only issue is I still feel like the Bengals should have rushed 4 instead of 3 in that situation. And you just got to be smarter about the situation when it comes down to it. I know that this is a late round rookie that's being put in that position. Some people are upset. I mean, it is kind of a package to where it's a lot of corners on the field. So some people were saying, "Oh, we should have had another safety in there." This guy was actually in there playing nickel corner. Other than that, you probably would have had Mike Hilton in there, which I don't know if you want to have somebody that's a shorter corner in against guys that are trying to jump over them. But at the end of the day, you got to play more discipline. You got to take advantage of those areas where you had the Chiefs. The Chiefs pretty much gave you this one, and you didn't take advantage of it. You went on the road. That would have been a really big win to be at 1-1. But the thing is, you're 0-2, but you've been here. You've been 0-2 now 3 years in a row. It's not a death sentence for a team like the Bengals because you've been there, especially with the schedule that you have. However, that would have just went a long way. The only thing that I can say, though, is that this looks like the Bengals, and we did that without T. Higgins. Like, T. Higgins was not in that game. The Bengals could have won that game without T. Higgins. You're getting T. Higgins back. The offense looks like it actually has a plan now. Jamar Chase was not your main guy in this game, and you still were able to nearly win a game that was a 1-point margin. So for me, for the Bengals, there's positives that you can take away from it. The defense is real. I think it's pretty clear that the defense is legit this season for the Bengals based off of what we've seen these first 2 weeks. And then I think the other thing is Joe Burrow is fine. There were no risk questions this week. There were wasn't no risk gate or anything this week. Joe Burrow played a clean game outside of the fumble. He played pretty well. He's outplayed Pat in a lot of these games. I know Chiefs fans don't like to hear that, but this was another one where Joe Burrow came out of it as the better statistical quarterback. But the win is what matters. And Kansas City got that, and that's what stings, I think, for Bengals fans. And that's why you feel like this one stings a little bit more than the last one.
Okay, Q, what do you thought about this game?
Yeah, everything statistically about the Bengals in this game is fine. The Bengals just kept doing dumb shit in this game. Like, I think that's the big takeaway from me. Look, we can talk about this pass interference or not, but look, let me tell you something. This is called contact between the corner and the wide receiver. The football is all the way over here
on the front,
right?
I got you.
Yeah. So I mean, it was clear pass interference. In a situation like that, where it's 4th and 16 and there's limited time left, just absolutely can't happen. Just a horrible mistake that you can't allow to have happen. You got to be coached up better than that, and you can't make those mistakes, especially when you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. Pat had a bad game in this one. And let's be honest about it. Pat hasn't had a hot start to the season. He wasn't that good versus Baltimore.
Yep.
That might be because of the defenses. That might be because other things that Pat got going on. But Pat's not been as sharp as he is. So this was a good opportunity for the Cincinnati Bengals to kind of snipe him. There was another time where the Bengals had a 3rd and 5, and Jamar Chase lost his mind because he could not believe he didn't get a hip drop tackle penalty or whatever it was he thought he should have got. He could not calm down in that moment, and he cost the team a pretty good opportunity to continue to move down the field. The Bengals should have won this game, but the reason the Bengals didn't win this game is because of the Bengals. Like, that's the big takeaway from me here. They played their best game, or they played a much better game than they did last week, obviously, when they lost to New England at home. We know that they play a little bit harder against Kansas City than they tend to against the rest of the schedule. So we'll see what they look like after this. And yeah, I get the point that the Bengals have done this before. They've started off slow before, and they have been fine before. But you can't rely on that. That can't be what you sit back and lean back on and rely on. And even the Bengals understand this because all offseason, they did not stop talking about how they were focusing on eliminating the slow starts to the season because they can't keep doing that and expect to get away with it. This was a game that the Bengals should have won. And I know we can look at it as they played a good game and they were close and they lost to the Patriots last week, but let's be real about it. They had this game in their grasp and they made giant mistakes multiple times that did not help them in winning this game. The Joe Burrow fumble, like the only reason the Chiefs would have won this game or have won this game is off of capitalizing of mistakes that the Bengals made in it. And that to me, when it's a game that's this high profile, when it's a game that you've talked this amount of junk about, when it's a game that you have this much attention on and it's a rivalry and your mistakes are why you lose, that is not a precursor to better things. Like, yeah, Joe Burrow's going to look fine. Jamar Chase is going to have better games. The offense is going to be fine, and the defense is going to be fine too. And the Bengals aren't going to be a horrible team. But the thing about the Bengals the last few years, the thing about the Joe Burrow Bengals that I've heard from Bengal fans and I've experienced myself that make them dangerous was that in these kind of moments, they don't make those mistakes. They make those big plays. They don't get and make a third down worse by arguing with the referees. They make the plays. They win these kind of games. The first time the Bengals beat the Cincinnati Bengals, the Bengals beat the Kansas City Chiefs. It was an exact opposite situation of this, where the Bengals just took advantage of the Chiefs' mistakes. They got a first down. They were able to run out the clock on the goal line. They beat Kansas City. Nobody saw it coming. They were playing a cleaner game than Kansas City did. This time, they had the opportunity to beat Kansas City. They probably, in all likelihood, should have, but they kept making their own mistakes. They made this game much harder than it needed to be to win, and it ended up blowing up in their face to the point where they didn't beat Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs in a game where he throws 2 interceptions. He's not going to throw 2 interceptions every time you play him, right? Like, that's just not going to – he's going to play a better football game, even if your defense is good. You didn't force Pat Mahomes into playing a 30 QBR game. That was partly on Pat. They can make those mistakes and live with it and play through it because they're Kansas City, but the Bengals, they can't. And that's what concerns me is like, hey, is this going to – do they have that same Bengal magic that they had in years past? Because I feel like in 2021 and 2022, they don't make those mistakes to lose that game. But ever since the Burrowhead comment, and I'm not blaming the Burrowhead comment, by the way. It's just an interesting line of demarcation here. Because ever since the Burrowhead comment, you could point to mistake after mistake that the Cincinnati Bengals make in the fourth quarter of these games that end up costing them versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Joseph Osai, late hit out of bounds. Then you have the next game. In the next game, pass interference. This game, pass interference. We could blame it on the refs, but the mistakes are being made. The penalties are there. And that is what I worry. Have the Bengals trolled themselves into being too emotional about this game to where now they can't finish it? Like that's a big question mark for me. The Joe Cool stuff, right? Does this seem like a team led by a dude named Joe Cool? Does this team feel Joe Cool to you? When Jamar Chase is throwing off his helmet and cussing out Joe Burrow and furious on the sideline, does this team feel Joe Cool to you? It doesn't feel Joe Cool to me. They're a good team. They'll be in the playoffs. But the question of will they have that same magic that they've had 2021, 22? It don't feel like it to me.
Ace, you're muted. What I was gonna say while Ace, you figure out your mic. It is a tough one because the game itself was such a not a clean game, but a close game, a back and forth game. Well, not a back and forth. The Bengals definitely have more control than usual, as Ace mentioned. You're back, Ace. You're back.
Yeah, I was gonna say the only pushback that I have is that, and even Chiefs fans will tell you, is there's nobody that games plans for Pat Mahomes better than Lou Anarumo. Like he does not. It's not a guarantee that he's gonna have like a 400-yard, 4 touchdown game against the Bengals just because we tend to play him pretty well. That's the only pushback that I had about like Pat Mahomes.
Okay, so let me go through some super chats and then let's talk about the Steelers game. By the way, J Rock messages us and he said that he's gonna make it. Boldigard says, "Nah, Sonny, I was a Ravens fan, but I wanna be a Browns fan. I just need them to get Lamar at QB."
Nah, this is somebody trolling.
So you're gonna be a Ravens fan.
It has
So he trying to
because
go
Lamar
back.
is not coming to Cleveland. Like he's
Yeah.
not even close to being the free agent.
no.
Somebody trolling.
Somebody's trolling
This
hard.
gotta be a Steelers fan.
Yeah,
I don't think it's somebody trolling. I just think it's somebody who, just a little
Frustrated.
enthusiastic. Well, no, just a little enthusiastic,
Noah Stone here says, if John Harbaugh goes, then we can get Bill. Bill Belichick is what he's mentioning. The 188 says Chase was talking leading up to the game. And then
That's
we
just how
also
Jamar
heard,
Chase rolls, though.
Yeah, like if you're saying that is talking compared to what Jamar Chase has done in the past with the Chiefs, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, the ones
that was
that I
like
was-
a toned down. That was like a toned down version of Jamar Chase. He even said that he wasn't gonna say anything to give them like some ammo this week.
by the way, Travis, yeah. There's 2 games that he hasn't.
Was he in that game? Did he play?
He barely did anything against the Bengals. He barely did anything against the.
the lineman had more of an impact on that game than he did. But,
I'm telling y'all, they trying to go back to back. They not gonna use Travis Kelce for like 8 weeks, dog. Like he old. He need a rest.
He is older.
Yeah,
The 188 here says, to me, the Bengals still have a physicality problem. If a team commits to play bully ball against them, can they hold up? I got my doubt.
What?
We'll see. Bully ball. Okay. Playing that.
Did
he just say the Bengals are soft?
Yeah, he said the Bengals.
Did he just say an NFL team is okay?
Larso here says, KC going to win it all again. No point in playing. Come on, Larso.
Wow.
Come on, Larso. I don't know what fan base you are. But
Stand
come
up straight. Stand up straight,
come on.
son. Stay,
Okay,
hold your
let's
back up
talk.
straight, dog.
Let's talk about this Steelers game. And I want to be fair here to the Steelers. You guys are 2-0. You're winning the division. You're one of, I think, in the whole league, I think there's 10 teams 2-0.
Yeah.
And you guys told me, and you were right, I'm going to take my L. That offense is going to be better this year. That offense was going to put more points.
Whoa, Sonny.
Wait, isn't that
you
happening?
do not have to give that. They scored 13 points.
Oh. I just,
They scored 13 points in that game.
I was at
pump the
work.
brakes.
And then they told me, no, have you seen our offense? And I'm like, what do you mean?
They've
won
scored
game.
1 passing touchdown this whole game, this whole year.
Cute. I know. I know. To Mr. Washington, second string tight end, blocking tight end. Now I was joking.
Championship.
I was joking, but hey, the defense is doing what they need to do. Offensively, the Broncos are a good defense, but they're not top of the league defense, right? We're not talking here about maybe the top third.
Do we think the Broncos defense is good just because we see them in juxtaposition of that stanky ass offense they got out there?
I think they are top third, like a 12 to 13 mark defense, right?
But I'm just saying that because we got to say something nice about Denver when we talk about them, but they stink.
And then Bo Nix
stinks.
He was as advertised by Q in the draft. Remember the draft? If you haven't, that video is hilarious. You can go back and watch that draft.
Yeah, he looked like a 3rd round pick out there. He looked like the worst 1st round pick since Kenny Pickett out there playing. Like
he looked like Kenny Pickett when he came out of the.
Well, Kenny Pickett, to his credit, doesn't throw red zone interceptions. Like
which probably was the game, right? But anyway, again, giving the flowers. You guys won. Your defense is doing what it needs to be doing, right? They did it against the Falcons. The Falcons just beat the Eagles, and you guys did it against the Broncos team in Denver. To be fair to you, Steelers, you're 2-0, both games on the road. That is important. My team can't say that right now. Ace team cannot say that right now. So I'll give you your flowers. But with all that being said, yo, all I heard this offseason is this offense gonna be better. This offense gonna be better. And last year, what was the average? 18, 19 points? I can't remember. It was less than 20. Whatever it was last year.
They're actually averaging less points than they did at this point last year.
That's what, and that was gonna be my point. Right now, it doesn't look good. It could be new coordinator. It could be. But I'm just saying.
But in all fairness, I'm with you too. I would say this: Steelers defense is real, right?
It
like
is.
that. Out of anything, we know that their defense is real. They've hung their hat on kind of this style of play for the last several years. It's working now. So, like, I'm not going to hold this against them because I don't think anybody expected right now, outside of Steelers fans and probably people monitoring the situation, that the Steelers would be the team in the North that are in first place. But that's what it is right now, right? And they've got there by good coaching, great defense. The offense is what it is. The one thing that they haven't done, at least on offense, from my understanding, is really turn the ball over, right? Like they've got something in Justin Fields. It's not consistent because he started off this game pretty good, ended the game pretty bad, but they at least have something there, right? Like they have another thing that they can kind of build on, and they have to figure this out soon because as these games and opponents start to ramp up, it's going to get a little harder. So if you guys are wondering why we're being so critical about the offense, when you have a team like Kansas City, or not Kansas City, yeah, you guys do have to play Kansas City, I believe, this year. But when you have those kind of teams coming
Everybody.
later throughout the season, you talk about the Cowboys, you talk about the Chargers, now with Jim Harbaugh, like those are going to be games that you may have to score points, especially when those games ramp up. But as it stands now, I think that you can appreciate the winning ugly, but that's just not a long-term formula, I think, for success. That's not a playoff version of success. Now, if they're able to do that, that is going to kind of make them a unique team that's out there right now. But I think 2-0 is 2-0 at this point, right? This is coming from a team that's 0-2 right now. So you don't get style points for losing, right? So right now they're winning as this team. It's very ugly, but it's winning right now. And I think the fact that they have this lead over a division with some of the teams struggling within the division, you talk about the Bengals, you talk about the Ravens, you've got a game lead on the Browns. And those are things that can kind of help you when it gets to December, right? Like when we get to these situations where the leader of the division is you're a game back or a game and a half back, or you start to have these things, this 2-little game lead that they kind of have right now, or 1 game lead in response to the Browns, can be something that is a factor later on. So I think if you're a Steeler right now, you're not like celebrating like you've already won the division, but you're like, okay, let's try to manage this lead that we have while these other teams in the division try to figure it out. And these are the games that you got to win. Like we already talked about how hard the Steelers' schedule is. They're winning the games that they're supposed to. And when you look at, the Bengals against the Patriots, you look at the Ravens against the Raiders, you look at some of the other games, like those are things that those teams were not able to do. So this is how you can kind of create a little bit of that gap. So we'll see where this goes going forward. I don't know how the Russ situation is playing out. I don't know how you can bench Justin Fields until this thing starts to end up in a loss. So we'll see where it goes. But I think for Steelers fans, you feel good about where you're at right now. Even though there are some things to be desired, you feel good at where you're at 2-0.
What do you think, Hugh?
Yeah, I would push back on the whole like being in first place here means anything. Like it means nothing to your division standing at this point. We haven't even played a division game between all 4 teams yet, right? Like I don't think the Bengals have played any division opponents. The Ravens have, the Browns have, or the Steelers have, and like even this game here, they played 1 AFC conference opponent. So I'm not going to read too much into like being in first place with Pittsburgh right now. Honestly, I think bragging about being in first place in the first half of the season is always a fool's errand. Like the Browns have been in first place plenty of times in the first half of the season, and it's never really translated to anything. And that can really just be kind of meaningless there. But I do think Pittsburgh's defense is very strong, right? Last year, they were a step below what Cleveland and Baltimore were able to provide defensively. This year, they're about up there, right? I think they're a really good defense this year, and they're a really strong unit. Now, again, We saw him against a Kirk Cousins who was playing absolutely awful in week 1. And maybe that had something to do with Pittsburgh, but like the tape doesn't indicate that. There was stuff there. It just wasn't being taken by Kirk. And maybe that's just week 1 on a new team for Kirk Cousins. And in week 2, yeah, you looked elite versus Bo Nix, but I mean, I would imagine it would be hard to not look elite versus Bo Nix. He's not good. He was not a first round pick. He should not have been a first round pick. He's somebody who I thought was a 3rd round pick. And he looks like it. He looks pretty bad out there, to be honest. So yeah, you look impressive versus Bo Nix. We'll see what this defense looks like. I think they get a better test this week. Do they play the Chargers?
The Chargers, yep.
Chargers.
Yeah,
But
and the Chargers have been looking pretty good.
Herbert's not practicing. They say he's hurt.
Here's the fun fact about the Chargers.
They don't need Herbert. I get you.
They've been running it 32 times with
Yeah.
the Ravens' old running backs.
Yeah, 0, baby.
Yeah, 32 times between J.K.
J.K.
Dobbins
Dobbins.
and Gus Edwards. Also another, so let's talk about the Steelers offense, right? And I feel like when we talk about the Steelers offense, y'all remember Sierra Miss?
Yeah.
The drink?
Miss twist
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
And then that now it's a twist or something like Starry. It's Starry now.
Starry now. It's
Is that what
changed.
Starry is? I was
Yeah.
wondering when the Starry
Starry
came.
is Sierra Miss.
Sierra Miss, then it was Miss Twist, now it's Starry.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like they put some new paint on it, and that's what. Oh, look how new it is! That's the Steelers' offense this year. It's the same thing. This is the exact same team they were last year, for better or worse. Except for I do think the defense is a little bit better. The offense wise, I mean, they got off to a hotter start in this game, but after that, like second quarter, they really got nothing going for the rest of this game.
Hard to watch.
The run game I think is a bigger problem than the passing game for Pittsburgh at this point, because they're not trying to win off throwing the football. So it doesn't matter if they're mediocre throwing the football, but what they are trying to win off of is running the football. And y'all laugh when I said it. Some Steeler fans got mad at me when I said it, but Najee Harris continues to put up the most generic running back numbers of all time. Like just average, cannot build a team around him being your running back, your primary back. 17 carries, 69 yards in this game, 4.1 yards a carry. That's average. I mean, Jalen Warren had 9 for 42 on 4.7, which is above the Mendoza line. And I think that's a bigger problem for Pittsburgh going forward. Look, their offense is their offense. They're going to have to win games the way they have to win it. I predicted that the Steelers would start the year 2-0 because I picked them to win both games. This is not a surprise to me that they've won both these games. Atlanta was a team they should beat because they're more competent than Atlanta. And the Denver Broncos, it's a game they should have won, right? We'll see what they do this week. It's going to be a real test. But right now, the needle really isn't moved on Pittsburgh because I've seen no evidence that they're that much different of a team than they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, again, I work with a bunch of Steelers fans, and they had their chance up this week, and I went to work. They were pumping. They were excited. They were, we got this. We're winning it all. That's the energy they had.
This is what I'll say. When you get that lead, like we can talk about the divisional games. The Steelers are going to beat some of us in these games. Like it's everybody has each other's number depending on how it is. Like we've lost to them with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback before. Like anything is possible in the divisional games. I think if you're a Steelers fan, you're feeling confident just because of how these other teams are looking right now. Like when you look at Cincinnati and Baltimore, you're probably like, okay, we actually have a chance against these guys right now. Because
but don't Cincinnati and Baltimore both get to play Denver? Like in teams like that, they're going to go on a 2-game win streak eventually.
When you look at the Ravens, though, Sonny, tell them about the next 3 games that the Ravens have.
We get Dallas.
Then they get Buffalo.
Bills.
And they get Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Does that sound like Pittsburgh can still have a chance to be over them at that point?
You can't try to convince me when I've seen what the Bengals have done to win this division in the hole that they've dug themselves out of, that a 2-0 record against no division opponents in week 2 is this
But
like
this is the
significant
Steelers, man.
hole to dig themselves out of. Like, yeah, they're winning the games they're supposed to win, but until they beat somebody they're not supposed to beat, I'm not moved. They could have played these 2 games at any point in the season. They were gonna win these 2 games. The question is, can Pittsburgh beat teams they're not supposed to? Because that's when the difference is going to be made up. Because ultimately, the Bengals can beat a larger portion of their schedule than the Steelers can if you just look at it from who should win based on who's on the roster. Same thing's true with the Ravens, right? The question is, can the Steelers beat a team that they're not supposed to beat? Do they have it in them to do that? What I think is not there for them.
When I'm looking at the Steelers schedule, they got the Colts. We think that they can beat them, right?
Chargers first.
Chargers, if they're playing the Chargers without her, like the Chargers haven't been super impressive. So like they've won, but it hasn't been super impressive. So it wouldn't shock me if they beat them. Then they've got the Colts. Cowboys might be one of those games. The Raiders, I mean, no offense, Sonny, but I think they should beat the Raiders.
Yeah.
Then they've got the Jets. That's kind of like they can win that. Then they've got the Giants. Then they got the Commanders. Like they don't have these games where it just seems like
after week 8, that schedule takes a tremendous turn. And it's not about where you're sitting in the middle part of the season. Like they're gonna have to play all of these games to win the division. Right. And like, you know, I would just caution ourselves. If the Steelers beat the Falcons and the Denver Broncos back-to-back weeks outside of the first 2 weeks of the season at any other point, we would not be moved by that. So I would just caution ourselves on being moved by 2 wins that really wouldn't move us. The only reason they're moving us right now is because those happen to be the first 2 games they played.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. Before we go to the Browns game, let's hear from our sponsor.
What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness and the online fitness training camp. I would love to see you in training camp this month. We have the August program, which just launched. Everybody's diving into it and having a blast doing some football-specific exercises. We have football pick'em coming at the end of this month where I'm going to be giving away free supplements to winners. We're doing a step count challenge in September. Going to be giving away a treadmill for that. So there's lots of fun stuff coming. AFC North podcast has a discount code. Make sure you hit the link, head over to the website, sign up, and I will see you in training camp.
I'm just going to say one last thing. I know we're not acting like the Falcons didn't just beat the Eagles. Are we really acting like the Falcons?
Are we acting like the Eagles are like that anymore? Like, this ain't the Eagles that we thought, they're going to go back to the Super Bowl. This is the Eagles that got eliminated by the playoffs easily by Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, they have just been serious. And then look how they lost that game.
But I think if either of us, which we play the Eagles, I don't look at that as like I'm playing the Broncos.
And again, Ace, did they play the same way they played against the Eagles that they played against the Falcons played against the Steelers last week? Like, it was clearly a different level
in their defense, though, we're talking about Kirk Cousins coming off of an injury, his first year in a brand new offense with players that he's never played with. It's not like this is a team that he's familiar with. He goes week 2 against the Eagles and gets a huge win with a walk-off, pretty much touchdown against the Eagles, who are a good team. But are the Eagles not a good team?
Here's the point, though. You just made my point. Yeah, you said, hey, part of why Kirk Cousins looked better was because he was in the second week with the Atlanta Falcons. He played against Pittsburgh his first time in that new offense. Yeah, he won against a good team, questionably a good team, because like I don't think that the Eagles look like a great team, in my opinion, and they didn't look like a good. When the last 8 weeks of football, have the Eagles looked like a great team? Like, seriously, have we been the last 8? They lost to Daniel Jones in the last 8 times that they lost to Zach Wilson in the last 8 times that they've been out there. When we saw them
that first week with Saquon Barkley, we were not sitting here thinking like, the Eagles aren't really all that.
And they barely squeaked it out versus a Green Bay team that lost their quarterback at the end of the game.
Yeah, at the end of the game, but the Packers are still a good team, are they not?
They're fine, but still, like this, we can't look at this like this is the Super Bowl.
I'm just saying that there's a difference between the Falcons and the Broncos. That's all I'm saying. If you want to say Broncos, cool, but like Falcons,
I'm saying the Falcons in week 1 played not much different than the Broncos did.
Yeah.
Like you can put together different efforts. The Bengals put together a significantly different effort in week 1 and week 2. The Bengals were a much easier team to beat in week 1 than they were week 2. That doesn't change the performance in week 2. You can't retcon it and say, "Oh, they actually were playing good," and the Steelers made it happen.
I think Vegas picked the Steelers to lose that first game. Like I know we on here, some of us said that, but nobody really went into that thinking that the Steelers were just easily going to win that game.
Okay, so we don't go through a tangent. The last thing I will add, because I think both of you are good.
I just got to fight for the Steelers up here because we don't have a Steelers representative, I hate to do it.
And the only thing I will add is the Steelers will be in every single game because of that defense, as long as there's no turnovers committed, right? If the offense is playing a clean game, and a clean game for them is basically no turnovers, forget about putting points, it's no turnovers, they're in every game. But to Q's point, that's exactly what they were trying to do last year. Let's not turn the ball over, play great defense. Hopefully the defense causes a turnover, puts us in good field position, and then we can score. They're the exact game plan. You just swap the quarterbacks, and to be fair, Justin Fields is more mobile. So if the pocket and the line breaks down, which it was a problem last year, Fields has the ability to bail out of the pocket and get you a couple yards, right? So that's basically the difference what I see with the Steelers. But they will be a hard out because of that defense. That defense is good, and as long as Fields plays a clean game, again, my definition for him, a clean game is no turnovers. Forget about putting yards and all this, just no turnovers. They will be in every game. Will they win every game? Doubt it, but they will be in it. It will be a closeout. Okay, we have a bunch of super chats here. The 188 says the penalties have been the main thing holding the offense back these first 2 games. This is for the Steelers.
Offensive line too, man. That offensive line too.
And that
Broderick Jones starting. Like, what are we doing out here?
They bench him.
Is Broderick Jones gonna play?
I don't know. They bench him. And that same Kirk just beat the stack Phillies team. And then the 180 also says, saying the Steelers have no difference than last year is just loud and wrong. With a strong
I don't think that they're a different team. I think it's the same thing with, like Q said, just a different name, like a rebrand of Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, which it's nothing wrong with that. That's just your identity right now when you don't have a star quarterback. Like you have to play great defense. You have to keep other teams off of the field by running the ball. And just in the generation that we're in right now, with football being kind of a passing sport and you having to rely on these good quarterbacks, and sometimes you have a good defense to pair with that. That's the only way that you can survive in these games. If you don't have that, you don't have.
I just don't think Pittsburgh's running game is good enough to be able to be the main thing that can carry them throughout the season. Like that's just the long short of it. You can call it whatever you want to call it, but you know it's the truth. Najee Harris is not like that. They don't have one of those running backs that you could build a rushing plan around. Like I can name you 12, 15 different running backs I'd rather have than you can make the argument that you would want the dude from the San Francisco 49ers more than you would want Najee Harris. Like that's what it is. Their run game just isn't like that. And this is a team that's going to try to win games based off of the strength of their run game. They're going to win games. I said it before the season started. They're going to win 9 to 10 games because this is the same exact team that they were last year, right? But that's the thing. They're the same exact team that they were last year, and they weren't really a threat to win a division seriously. And even if they weren't a serious playoff threat because their limitations ultimately are too severe for them to do more than put together a respectable regular season record, which they will do.
Yeah. What I will say, though, is, Q, I think they do have a running game. It's not in the running back room, though. It's Justin Fields.
That's the question, though. If they play Russell Wilson,
yards and he ran for 117, so to me that is their guy. The way that I looked at the Steelers is, I agree with you. Najee Harris is mid. We feel like the other guy is the guy, but the guy that can really elevate their running offense is Justin Fields because he was able to do that with the Chicago Bears single-handedly. And we kind of talk about what Lamar brings to the Ravens. I think that's something that he can bring to kind of highlight their running offense that really needs a spark. And I think Justin Fields can be the guy.
I just wonder how long that can last with it being that one-dimensional, especially in this conference, in this division. And then 2, do they put Russ in? Because I agree with you. they can win like this and put together a respectable record and do what they did last year, basically, with Justin Fields as the starting quarterback. The question is, if you put Russ in there and you lose that element and now it's really on Najee Harris, then what happens to that team? I know Russ can throw technically better than Justin Fields, but it's really not that much of a difference. You're just losing a ton of athleticism on the other side, and you're going to get behind the sticks more, which is going to take you out your run game with Russell Wilson in there. So that's the question, right? If they go back to Russ, that's the only way I could see Pittsburgh somehow like dipping to almost 500 or below 500 is if they decide to stubbornly stick with Russell Wilson. But the way this thing is played out, they're going to stick with Justin Fields. I have always contended on this show that they would be a better team with Justin Fields than Russell Wilson. The question is, will they stick with it? And how far does it take you before the limitations of Justin Fields become too much, right? Because eventually you're going to have to throw the ball.
Okay, let me go ahead and finish these super chats, and then we can go to the Ravens game. To finish this, he says, knees must hurt from praying from the Pittsburgh downfall. He also says, Q talks, Pitt won't get better, LOL. Also says, Kirk looked bad week 1 because of Steelers defense. And then Q is loud and wrong, but he's being the...
I've been right about Pittsburgh so much, so often. Like, I have been right about this every year. You guys kick and scream and bitch and moan and call me a hater and talk about all of this stuff and Quincy's anti-Steelers. And then at the end of the year, you're spending your whole offseason crying about the same stuff I told you was going to happen in week 4.
Yeah.
Like, you end up sounding just like you're going to say the same shit that I'm saying right now at the end of the season. Oh, we can't get past a certain level. Yeah, we'll have a decent record. You're going to end up saying the exact same thing that I'm saying, but then you're going to think you're a genius because you told yourself that you came up with it, but you've been hearing it from me for the last 4 years. I've been telling the Steelers about this. Has it not happened? Every year, except for the 1 year they won 11 games. Did not see that one coming. I will admit to that one. Was wrong about that one, but felt great about how it ended, by the way. So, like, that is what it is. But since 2021, 22, 23, 24, I've been telling you guys this is what it is. And then y'all get mad at me and act like the Steelers are going to go 12-4 and this offense is going to get it together and they're going to get better. Man, that super chat is hilarious to me because he's like, oh, the Steelers offense isn't going to get better. We've been talking about the Steelers offense getting better for 4 years now. It's been the same shit since Juju Smith-Schuster was a relevant force in the NFL. We've really been talking about this since Corvette. Will the Steelers offense be good again? We've been talking about this since Le'Veon Bell went on them damn jet skis, since Antonio Brown had a functioning piece of his brain. We've been talking about this. That's the last time we've not talked about the Steelers offense being absolutely like miserable. And every year, y'all swear to me I'm wrong about this. And every year I end up being right. I'm just saying, please take off the goggles and give me credit one time, y'all. One time.
Okay, and then last super chat here says Q, New York Giants trap game for the Browns.
How is it a trap game? Who we gonna get trapped for? We play like we play the Raiders the week after, or the Commanders.
Yeah.
And by the way, the Browns they don't have the luxury of a trap game. They gotta establish themselves as playing better football consistently before we can even talk about a trap game for the Cleveland Browns. Like they have not played at that level.
Okay, so let's talk about the Ravens. Let me revisit my pain on Sunday.
Man.
This was a game that hurted. And I can
got a lot of yards against the Ravens last week.
Yes. Browers was really good.
Browers.
But if you watch the whole game, the Ravens defense was doing a lot of bending and not breaking, right? They put a lot of field goals. There's 2 touchdowns. One came out of the Bateman. The ball is here, and he's like, I don't know what to do with the ball. And the guy strips from the ball from him. So the Raiders starts on the 48 on that side of the 48. So not a long drive. So that was the first touchdown that the defense allowed. And then the second touchdown that they allowed was on that defensive pass interference. The defense overall played well. They gave up yards, so the ball was being moved, but it wasn't hurting. I mean, again, there was a lot of field goals. On offense, so the reason why you hear a lot of fire Harbaugh, and people are super pissed with Monken too, by the way. This is not only Harbaugh. The reason is because Henry was getting going in the second half. Henry was getting chunk plays, 5 here, 7 there, 8 here. Like he was getting chunk.
I know that first half was rough.
The first half was rough, right? But in the second half, he started making stride. And then he scored a touchdown. And after the touchdown, I think he carried the ball one more time. When you're up by 10 and you're trying to, pull the game away, if your running back is really running well, which again, at that moment in the game, because at the beginning he wasn't, but at that moment in the game he was, what are we doing? So I get why the fan base is frustrated. The other frustration that comes here is the right guard. And by now, I know you guys watch this show a lot. You heard this name before, Falele. You heard me complaining for years about Falele.
Big ass playing guard is hilarious. Yeah. And they moved Makari to tackle. They should have
just... game, though, Sonny.
What?
Boy, Owe had a game, though.
Owe played great. Look, and funny enough, I had the Owe jersey that day. But what I was going to say is Falele couldn't play tackle because his feet are not quick enough, right? You put him in guard, assuming that this giant man that weighs almost 400 pounds and it's like 6'7", you're like, at least these people will take some time going around him. This dude is like water. People go through him like nothing. And you're like, what the hell is this? You're like, are we serious? Like, I probably can make them a quarter of a second delay more than Falele. Like, I'm what? And then Harbaugh doesn't want to. Like, I think Ben Cleveland, which ended up playing last year, the last 3 or 4 games when Seiler got injured, and played well, but he had to do something to Harbaugh because Harbaugh basically said, no, but Cleveland needs to do more in practice. Like, this dude did something to Harbaugh that Harbaugh does not want to play him. Because
Ben Cleveland been there longer than Falele, right?
Yes. And the other thing is they're doing our rotation on the right tackle side. And Rosengarten is now starting to look good, right? On the right tackle, they're still rotating with Makari. Well, if you're so happy with rotation, why are you not rotating Falele and try Ben Cleveland and see? And if he sucks too, I mean, it's going to be hard to suck more than Falele right now. Max Crosby ate them alive. Okay? Even with all that, offense is winning. They need to put games away. This is a problem that the Ravens have. They need to put games away. You're winning by 10. I predicted the game. I said we were going to be winning by, I think I said 7 or 10 points, and then we were going to get a touchdown late. It should have happened that way. It didn't. As soon as that pick happened, it was like a completely different team. Like they didn't know what to do. Pick happened. The defense allowed a touchdown. Again, I don't want to blame the defense because the defense is just holding it tight throughout the whole game. That's the first touchdown. Then I'm here with Ace. Look, I usually don't come and complain about the rest, but that third and 17, but it's a third and goal from the 17. Pass interference was rough, right? That didn't lose you the game because that tied you the game, but definitely you see mentally how this team is basically losing it, and you cannot. Lamar as a leader needs to calm his team down. John Harbaugh as a leader needs to calm the team down. He needs to be like, okay, guys, I understand. We got screwed in that play. Right? And if you look, the Raiders earlier in the game went on a 4-2, and they threw exactly the same deep pass or go route to Devontae Adams against Brandon Stevens. Both of them are locking arms. Both of them detangle themselves before the ball gets there. And Stevens doesn't allow the catch. And the same thing happened in that play. They're both Adams initiates contact and holds Steven. And then Stevens, when he sees the ball, he puts because the ball was underthrown, he puts the arms up just to show, like, I ain't touching this dude. DPI. When that play was happening, my mom is here helping me with the baby, and I said to my mom doesn't know a lot about football. She doesn't watch football. I'm like, all they have to do is not commit a penalty. They're winning by 10. Don't commit a penalty, and then you can burn the clock, right? 3rd and 17, especially they went for it all. Then they're going to go 4th and goal, and they're going to go for it, try to tie it, right? That's what you're trying to do. They committed the penalty. Next play, a touchdown. Again, that's how they ended up with 2 touchdowns. It is frustrating. O-line needs to get better. I think the right side, Rosengarten, I think he's a rookie, but you're already seeing his improvements. So I think the right tackle position is going to be fine. The question here is the right guard, because I don't want to see the damn Falele anymore. Every time you see...
Let me ask you this, though. Because I was expecting the same thing like you're saying for the Ravens offensive line to struggle. But I came across, there was a stat posted today that says that the Ravens offensive line isn't struggling. Pass block win rate per ESPN, you guys are winning those reps 68% of the time, good enough for 4th in the league.
Okay.
Run block win rate, you guys are winning those 72% of the time, good enough for 13th in the league. Is it just for Lele, or is it because it doesn't seem like the offensive line by their metrics are losing or is in disarray? Like,
on the overall,
what
it's
we're
not.
expecting.
In the overall, it's not, because Stanley has been playing good. Voorhees has been playing good. Linderbaum's doing his thing. And like I said, Rosengarten is getting better, and even Pat McCarty is not terrible. But basically, Chris Young and Max Crosby outside rusher, he was like, I'm gonna rush from the inside now. I'm gonna make a stunt on Falele so I can come clean straight to Lamar Jackson. Like, everything is coming to the right guard position. Like, right now, we're playing the Cowboys. What do you think they're gonna do?
They gotta attack the weakest lineman. I mean, Q knows that now. Q knows that. What do you think they do with Myles Garrett? They're gonna find somebody that's weak.
Look,
they're gonna put him on the edge, but then they're gonna find, if you got a weak guard, he's gonna test that guard too.
So the other thing they need to do. So the other 2 problems that I see is Henry's there, they're running the ball. Henry's out, that's when they're throwing. Now you're being predictable. You need to leave Henry more on passing situation, because now you're just predictable. And second, something that you don't see a Ravens team doing, undisciplined. They lead the league, I believe, in penalties and in penalty yards. That's not something a Ravens team usually do. They need to figure that out. And most of these penalties are on offense, by the way. They need to figure it out. They need to clean it up. If not, it's going to be a long season for the Ravens. Q, what do you think?
Yeah, the Ravens, I don't know. Daniel Falele, I tried to make this point. I think
you want to Q?
When he was no. But I remember making the point after the Senior Bowl he was in. I was like, hey man, I never want to draft a tackle that's 6'8", almost 400 pounds, and lets little itty bitty Majay Sanders bull rush him multiple times in practice. Like, I knew it was over there for Daniel Falele. I was shocked that the Ravens took him, but so I'm not surprised to see that there's issues there. I don't know what to make of this. Look, every year a team loses a random game. And last year, that game for the Ravens just happened to be against Gardner Minshew. And while it is hilarious that they have lost to Gardner Minshew in M&T Bank Stadium twice.
Yep.
Hilarious that that's happening.
I'm not laughing, but yep.
I don't know what to make of it. Because, like, you're talking about the offensive line. I'm more concerned that in the last 5 drives of the game, the Raiders were able to get extended drives off against this Ravens defense 3 times. Like, that to me is a bit more concerning.
You mean because of the penalties?
Huh?
Extended as they move the ball.
Yeah.
Well, so what happened the last 3 was the pick, the DPI. They haven't stopped at 4th and 17, and then our punter. We didn't move the ball on offense again. The punter shanks the ball, and the Raiders starts on the 48, on their own 48. Right, so
they had a 7-play, 64-yard drive, a 9-play, 70-yard drive, and a 6-play, 23-yard drive to get that last field goal. But it's just weird to see the Ravens make these kind of mistakes that
I agree.
Yeah, that don't get them to winning this game. I could make jokes about Roquan Smith and where was Roquan during all of this, and
Roquan wasn't his fault.
It's never his fault, but it ain't never his fault. Like it ain't never Roquan's fault when something go wrong. But all of a sudden, every time something goes right, it's because of Roquan's impact on the defense and how he makes everybody else better. But boy, when that defense shutters in, it ain't got nothing to do with Roquan Smith. But I'm not blaming this one on Roquan Smith. I'm just saying it's interesting how the Ravens have lost these last 2 games. I don't think it's insightful, but I do think it's interesting that they lost these 2 games in this way at the end of them. But I think they'll be fine coming out of it. I don't think that this is going to be the norm for them. I think they'll end up being fine after this. Ultimately, you lost to Kansas City and you dropped a random game to Gardner Minshew. Again, this is why I don't love making long-term projections in the beginning of the season, because that loss to Indianapolis ended up being so meaningless for the Baltimore Ravens, right?
At the end, yes.
And it's more about the bigger picture that you have for the team. And I didn't see anything that shook my belief in the bigger picture in this team, which is that they're going to still be able to play very solid defense. And Lamar Jackson's still playing at an MVP level. So that doesn't really move me there. I thought Zay Flowers had a nice game in this one. Isaiah Likely, you're on my shit list. I started you at the bench of you last week on my fantasy football team. And you know who I benched this week to start Isaiah Likely?
Flowers?
Nah. Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers. I benched Brock Bowers to start Isaiah Likely. And Isaiah Likely, I would never forgive you for that. Also, Brock Bowers, screw you too, because you got me 2 points when I should have started. I hate this combination of tight ends that I have on my roster. So,
okay.
Outside of all of that, I don't know. I think these are interesting losses for the Ravens. I don't think they're that insightful, though.
Ace. Oh, you're muted, Ace. I'll go with super chats while you get that. This comment.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
All right. For this one, man, I was watching this game, and I'm like, all right, this is a little closer than I thought that this game would be. But at no point did I ever feel like the Ravens were going to lose this game. I'm like, oh, LOL, Ravens in a close one with the Raiders. Same situation the Bengals were in the week before, right? Like Vegas had that as like the highest spread game, just like the Bengals and Patriots. I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, LOL Ravens, they're gonna figure out a way to win this game. It's gonna end with a Justin Tucker kick and stuff like that. Speaking of Justin Tucker, going back to 2023, I believe it is, from 50 yards, he's made he's like 2 for 7. He's like 2 for 7 now. I don't know if Justin Tucker is that guy anymore. I don't think he, like when Adam Vinatieri started to kind of fall off, like he used to be that guy, and then the next thing you knew, he was on the Colts. This might be Adam Vinatieri on the Colts. This isn't Justin Tucker, who we know have gone to know as like Mr. Automatic. He is not that anymore, which puts this Ravens offense in a peculiar position. And the weirdest part about this Ravens offense is you don't kind of know what the identity of it is. It's like, who's the main guy and where has Mark Andrews been? This is 2 weeks now where Mark Andrews has 1 catch in 2 weeks. He's supposed to be wide receiver 1 in this offense. He's not looking like it. Like when the fact that we're seeing Rashad Bateman make more plays and more of an impact on this offense than what he's doing. I don't know what's going on there with Mark Andrews. I don't know what's going on with the Ravens offense right now. And this was a game where they had the lead, and the defense is the part of the team that's not holding up its end of the bargain. They're out here with this lead. They're not able to score at the end, but the Ravens defense allowed the Raiders to get back into this game. Brock Bowers had an amazing game. Devontae Adams made some catches there at the end. They didn't really establish a run game with Las Vegas, but they were able to score points at the end. And the question that I had coming into this season, and I felt like a lot of Ravens fans downplayed it, how are they going to replace Mike McDonald, right? Like the star DC that came in there, and a lot of people forget before Roquan and before he got there, Ravens defense wasn't good. Like I think people kind of forget because Mike McDonald came in, righted the ship, traded and got Roquan, and ever since then they were an elite defense. But now Mike McDonald isn't there, and we have this rookie defensive coordinator that I kind of had questions about coming into the season. Like Zach Orr, is he going to be as good as Mike McDonald? It does not look like it through the first 2 games. Now, is this a need to panic? No, but these are some of the growing pains that happen when you have a new DC in there and you're trying to work through this and you're trying to figure out what can this defense do to slow teams down at the end of games. Now, the other thing, we talk about Pat Queen. I don't know. I would have to ask Sonny how the loss of Pat Queen is working out for them. But so far, it doesn't seem like they have that same tenacity from the linebacker position outside of Roquan. When it comes to the defensive line, I think that they're good. I think they're getting pressured. They had a lot of sacks in this game. Pass rush looks good. I can't quite put my finger on what exactly the issue is other than me seeing a new defensive coordinator. The secondary has had some issues, but not crazy to the point where it's like these guys aren't talented. But to lose a game to Gardner Minshew in this fashion is somewhat concerning to me. Like when you lose to Pat, that's not a problem. Cool. I get that this Raiders team is a little unpredictable, but the fact that Gardner Minshew was able to come back after this team had the lead by more than 10 points at one point, or at 10 points at one point, and the offense couldn't score, is this a Ravens team that still has that defense like last year that you could get a 10-point lead and chill? I don't think they have it now. And from an offensive standpoint, other than Zay Flowers, what is your offense? Like, I thought that Isaiah Likely, after week 1, was going to be that next big threat for this Ravens offense. I didn't see the consistency from him in this game, but if it's not Zay Flowers making plays for this offense, if it's not Derrick Henry getting some runs here and there, which Cube's looking right about that, by the way, because Derrick Henry only had, I think, 84 yards in this game. And before he made that big run, he was averaging like 0.4 yards per carry. I don't know what the Ravens offense is right now. And if in normal years, I would probably look at this and say, I'm not panicking about the Ravens. But as I said, when I've seen some of the teams that they have to play, they don't have the position to drop another game like they just did with the Raiders. Like, this should have been a game that they bounced back. They win. They had control of the game. They somehow lost the momentum at the end. So my questions are more so for the defense and how the offense can score more in Baltimore. I don't think it's a Lamar issue, but what is the Ravens offense right now? What is the Ravens defense right now? What is the Ravens special teams right now? Like, we haven't been able to question all 3 phases of a Ravens team in a long time. There was a point where I just knew that Justin Tucker, even if you had to kick it from 60, he's making that. Lamar's only got to get 30, 40 yards, bro. That's it. Like, game over. We can't say that anymore right now about the Ravens. So I'm not saying that the Ravens aren't a good team. I'm not saying that they're going to struggle or anything like that. I'm just saying these are some concerns, I think, for the Ravens that we have to figure out from their standpoint. And I think it's more of a product of some of the offseason losses, and they're trying to react to them. But they're going to have to react very quickly. And so for me, it just was one of those games where you feel like you had to have this one. We'll see where they go in week 3. I'm very interested to see how the defense bounces back, how the offense bounces back. Because when going into the season, I'm like, all right, they've got some weapons here. They've got Derrick Henry. They've got Zay Flowers. Likely is looking to be the guy. I expected Mark Andrews to be there. I don't know where Mark Andrews is right now. They're going to have to find those guys, and they're going to have to find those points, and they're going to have to slow teams down on the defensive side to return to the Baltimore that we're expecting them to be. So that's all I have for me.
Activated my Baltimore trap card. What's the identity of the Ravens offense? I mean, we kind of know what the identity of the Ravens offense is. Give it to Lamar and pray. right? Let them make something happen. That's been the Ravens offense for a little while now. It's just been that a lot more brazen the less they've surrounded him with wide receiver play. And then you talk about Mark Andrews.
He had a decent game this game.
I mean, we've lowered the bar for what's decent for Mark Andrews significantly since we were talking about him being in the neighborhood, right? Like, remember we was having those conversations about Mark Andrews being in the neighborhood, and we was talking about him putting up them Kelsey-like numbers, them number one tight end in the NFL numbers. Yeah, last couple years, Mr. Andrews, he's been moving down the ladder, not up the ladder when it comes to tight ends, but that's okay. Now, the identity of the Ravens defense, well, that's an interesting one, Ace, because I thought they traded for the identity of their defense. I thought they made a big move to secure the identity of their defense. I thought that they got somebody who made everybody instantly better around the defense, right? This is the guy that has been credited with the improvement of the Baltimore Ravens defense, right? This is the dude. It's in Roquan Smith. And yet we're looking around and we're wondering what's the identity of the Baltimore Ravens defense. And the answer isn't Roquan Smith.
It is Roquan Smith.
How?
Look, as a linebacker, right, the rushing yards of the Raiders were down. Even Pacheco did not have a great game against this team. Pacheco, in my opinion, one of the best ones in the league currently. And like I said, both touchdowns come late. One was on a 1st and goal after they stopped them in the goal line situation, and the other one they did drive them. After the pick, they did. That was the one drive that the Vegas team had.
I get you, Sonny. But in a situation like that, you expect the face of your defense to make a play to change things, not just to be there, right? And the more and more I hear people talk about Roquan Smith, especially when I attack him for not being a game changer, it's people defending him by saying, hey, look, Roquan's not a game changer. He's not making those plays, but you know what Roquan's doing? He's doing what he's supposed to do. Is Roquan a bystander, or is Roquan the identity of this defense? Is Roquan really the best player on this defense? When does he put his stamp on a game defensively? When is he taking over a game? I've seen it with Myles Garrett. I've seen it with Trey Hendrickson. I've seen it with Kyle Hamilton.
Yep. That's the other thing.
But Roquan Smith, I'm waiting for the game where he takes over, and then if he does it, it'd be one game in 3 years with the Baltimore Ravens. So that, to me, is, I think, a question worth asking. Hey, if this happened to Myles, if this happened to TJ, and a team came back on it, comment section will be full of question marks. Where's TJ? Where was Myles?
Mm-hmm.
And there'd be some validity to that, because those are the guys who are supposed to stop stuff like this from happening. Even if it's justifiable, you got to make the play.
Yeah, I think, in my opinion, right, and I guess in here is where we're going to defer a little bit. When you have an outside rusher, that outside rusher definitely can impact more than a middle linebacker, even than a corner, right? Let's say you have Revis Island on his peak, right? Peak Revis Island. Nobody can catch the ball. Well, the team can just utilize the other side of the field, right? And you can say, oh, what happened to Revis Island? Well, Revis Island did his job. I'm just saying, as an outside rusher, right, you can impact the game more. That is.
So you're saying it was a mistake for them to put all that investment into a stand-up linebacker who does not make plays along the line of scrimmage?
No, because it would be the same thing in the case of Ray Lewis, right? As outside backer.
Yeah, but Ray Lewis made plays. Fred Warner makes plays. Like the guys that we're talking about, the linebacker, Fred Warner makes plays all the time, right? Around the line of scrimmage.
Okay, are you gonna say that Fred Warner is a bum because they just lost to Minnesota and
but when you watched Fred Warner play against the Jets, you saw Fred Warner put his impact on that game, did you not? When have you seen that with Roquan Smith?
And
that's the question.
In the case against Kansas City, that pick that he had. The pick that he had against Pat Mahomes, right? That if I'm not mistaken, catapult the drive where we score.
And that was in the first half of the game. And then what happened in the third and fourth quarter? When did he put the snap? Where's the Roquan Smith game? Like, I'm just saying, for every other player that we try to put in this caliber that Roquan Smith apparently belongs to, these are the expectations, no matter what position you play. Minkah Fitzpatrick gets a similar treatment. He plays safety, a position you can argue has less impact than linebacker. So I don't want to hear about the positional impact of Roquan. He's supposed to be beyond that. He's supposed to be transcendent because of his playmaking ability. Like some of the other players who are put in the same caliber is Roquan Smith. And time after time, we're talking about why it's not Roquan's fault. But like, when is it going to be Roquan's fault? What is he? Does he have to play an objectively awful game for it to finally be Roquan's fault? Or are we going to finally admit to ourselves, hey, maybe Roquan Smith is not this hands down, unstoppable impact player that people have made him out to be over the last 4 years. Maybe Roquan Smith is more of a product of his environment than he is a game changer. Maybe Roquan Smith is a nice luxury to have on your defense, but he's not your anchor on your defense. Maybe it wasn't just Roquan Smith that made the Ravens defense good the last couple of years, because if that were the case, we would have seen this defense do what they've done the last couple of years, which is snuff a comeback like this out. But no, it's not Roquan Smith. It's never Roquan Smith. It's something else going on, and something that Roquan has no control over. I feel like Roquan Smith should run for public office because he don't ever take blame for it like a politician. It's not me. It's him. That's the Roquan Smith agenda. It ain't never all Roquan. It's always somebody else not getting something else done. But when it comes to Roquan Smith, and when it's time for the best player on the defense to be a superstar and he doesn't show up in those moments, it ain't him. It's something else, man. And I'm just wondering, when we gonna start treating Roquan Smith like a star player?
The one thing I will tell you right now is Roquan takes responsibility. Like after the Chiefs, if you want to see what Roquan is in the wire, you know, we had he was mic'd up, and during the game, right, as the Ravens are trying to drive, Roquan is saying we shouldn't have been in this play. This is on us, the defense, right? And then on the interview, he said, "I'm the captain of the defense. This falls on me." So you're saying that Roquan never takes responsibility? I'm
not saying Roquan doesn't take accountability. I called him a politician.
You can't talk about big slow Ro. I mean, all pro Ro like that, Q. You can't talk about him like that.
Look, I have no issue. I have no worries that Roquan Smith is good at his messaging and good at saying things, right? Kind of like a politician. Hey, look, they say the right stuff. They'll give you the lip service. But when we're talking about, why is it always we're hearing about Roquan Smith say, hey, look, we got to be better than this. We got to do better than this. When is it going to be that they actually just do better and it's Roquan Smith's fault? Or Roquan Smith the reason why they're doing better? When is Roquan Smith going to put his stamp on the game? The only thing I've seen Roquan Smith put his stamp on in the last 2.5 years is press conferences and sound bites. I haven't really seen him put that same emphasis and stamp on the game tape like we expected him to when he came here to Baltimore, and like people talk about him. Like, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Roquan Smith's not a good football player. I'm not even saying Roquan Smith's not a Pro Bowl football player. But we're talking about him being elite. And we do not hold Roquan Smith to anywhere close to the same standard that we hold anybody that we hold Trey Hendrickson to a higher standard than we hold Roquan Smith. Yep. We come on here and we talk about when Logan Wilson play bad more than we talk about when Roquan Smith don't have an impact on the game. We come on here and we talk about everybody else but Roquan Smith. Well, not we. I talk about Roquan Smith, but I'll just say, when is it this dude who y'all said, Ravens fans said, the media around the Ravens said, is the reason this defense went from one of the worst defenses in the league at that point to one of the best? He was the change. He was the catalyst. I mean, when am I going to see that translate to actual on the field success in him taking over football games? That's really what I'm asking for with Roquan Smith. Yeah, I know he can run gap. I know he can get into his gaps and do what he has to do as a linebacker. I know he can get guys pointed in the right direction, but I expect an elite linebacker to do more than veteran task responsibility. Like that's just not it for me. I need Roquan Smith to kind of live up to the billing here, and I feel like we letting him slide on not living up to the billing because he's supposed to be elite, right, Sonny?
I think it's elite, and to be honest, I personally, I had never come here and said Roquan needs to do X, Y. I think Roquan does what he needs to do in the game. Has Roquan look the Pittsburgh game a couple years ago when Najee Harris beat him for that was Roquan. That was Roquan's fault. We lost because of Roquan, right? I will call it how it is, right? I think in the middle linebacker position, he plays well. He does what they asked him to do. I think he will prefer play more like Patrick Queen. And actually, that's how he was playing with the Bears, which was more free, near the line. Let me rush. Let me basically react to the running back, which is what Patrick King did here for us. For running back stays, I can just rush the passer and blah, 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 right? That's not his responsibility. Now you put Roquan a little bit off the ball, right? And he coordinates how the defense is going to set up, and then he plays. I think he's playing well. If the Bengals and Browns fans don't think so, that's fine. That's fine. Because that's a
we're not saying he's not playing well, though. The question is he an elite player?
I think he's an elite linebacker. Yes, middle linebacker.
He's an elite linebacker.
Middle linebacker, yes.
I don't see elite when I watch him play.
That's fine.
I see decent to pretty good linebacker, but elite? When has he showed you elite? Like, where's the elite? Like, what's he doing that's elite? Because everything I hear you say that says Roquan Smith is good, you're like, yeah, it's pretty good. That's good there. But, like, where's elite?
Well, so when you were saying earlier, and I don't want to deviate too much because we have a slew of super chats, but when you were saying earlier that the Ravens fans talked to you about how statistically this team completely changed from Roquan, that is factual. Even with Mike McDaniels, because Ace earlier brought up that with Zach Orr.
But is it factual that it's Roquan's fault that happened?
It was the only change.
Is it like it's not factual? Like there could be a number of reasons that happened.
But it was the only thing I can tell you that was the only change they happened in this defense, right?
Well, what's going on now?
Again, I don't think the defense played bad. I understand that
you're number one in the league in points allowed right now.
Okay. Who we played week 1? No, yeah. So we played the Chiefs, right? And with the Chiefs, we allowed 2 touchdowns, and those were legit 2 touchdowns. One defensive breakdown. Roquan said that he put it on him, but Kyle Hamilton said I was supposed to play too high. I was the one playing high, and then I came down. I forgot that I was playing too high, and that's if you go back, that was the Marlowe one. They got beat anyway. In my opinion, right, as a middle linebacker, as Fred Warner, I wouldn't ask Fred Warner to be as impactful as, for example, a guy like Bosa, right? Nick Bosa. Fred Warner, in my opinion, is a hell of a linebacker. I even said here before that I think Fred is better than Roquan. But their main responsibility is closing gaps in the running game, closing gaps or closing shortish pass games, because on a deep pass, those linebackers are not going to be there. They can get there, but that's the safety and corner responsibility. And in that, Roquan and Fred are doing the same, right? That's what I can tell you that as a linebacker they're doing, and they're both doing it on an elite level. They don't miss tackle, right? They don't, when the ball comes to them, they make sure the guys are down. And that is their main functionality. I think Roquan, in that, he excels. That's it. Does he make a pick every game? He doesn't.
Does he get a tackle for loss every game?
No, he barely blitzes. He rarely blitzes.
You don't got to blitz to get a TFL.
You don't, but when you blitz is when you have the biggest chance. He plays off the ball.
You just got to shoot your gap. Like if he's doing run gap responsibility, he got to shoot his gap. That's not blitzing.
So,
that's just shooting your gap.
But go ahead, sorry.
So that's what I'm saying. Like it's stuff like that he does not do that people give him a slide on. But hey, look, I thought about it enough. We're just gonna disagree on Roquan Smith here, but yeah. I think a lot of what we say about Roquan Smith, if we actually really listen to how we talk about him, we will realize we don't think he's elite. We just think he's pretty good. And I think that's okay. But we need to accept that. We don't think he's elite. We think he's just pretty good. And that's fine.
So let's talk. I was going to say earlier that this super chat made me laugh. This one from Fairpath said, Falele looks like the Siaki Ika of guards.
Hey, look, at least Falele got out there. Like, Siaki Ika didn't even touch the field.
The 188 says Q has been right about Pittsburgh, and yet ironically can't see that everyone else has been right, that Deshaun has been bad when healthy. He said that he's, you guys admitted that. He had a whole rant last week about it. Not to defend Q. Q can defend himself.
Yeah, we know how this goes. People just make up shit I say so they could be right because I was right about what I said. And he's done that multiple times in chat.
Christopher Robbins says, got a question. Did anyone hear Yamar Chase said he got hip tackle? Yeah. That's what he would.
I heard. I think that's what the ref told. That's what the ref said when he was interviewed about like the situation.
Yeah, that's what the ref said, and then he went off and he went above and beyond. That's what the ref said. The 188 said that with Chubb, Hurd, Najee will be running back one on that team.
No, Jerome Ford had 5 yards to carry.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I mean, I've been saying that Najee is a bust from year one. I've been in this train for a while.
I don't think Najee is a bust. I just think Najee is,
he's a bust for where he was drafted, which was my point.
He's underwhelmed for sure. But yeah.
Ellie Sports Guy says they call a really bad face mask on Marabika. Yes, they did. I mean, they call a couple bad ones. Andrew can't really produce because he has basically shot block every play. Yeah, I mean, they did change the offensive scheme that they're putting 2 tight end sets and they're letting them block and then come up. But again, Andrew had a fine game. I do agree with DQ. Does he had a game that you expect for a guy how we talk about Mark Andrew? No, but I think he had a fine game. Not a bad game, not a good game, just a fine game. Q's argument about Roquan sounds eerily familiar to the standard we should be holding the $230 million Deshaun Watson too. LOL.
Wait, is the implication that I've not held Deshaun Watson to that standard?
That's what the 188 says.
Is that the implication there? Yeah, okay. Just go check my work. I talked about it. I just talked the video today talking about how we can't lower our expectations for Deshaun Watson simply because he's had a bad game, and then we can't lower our expectations to him being good. He has to be great. But yes, keep making shit up that I say and arguing against it and see if you can still talk in chat.
Noah Stone here says this game happen every year. John has to go now. And then Mighty Mulatto says, did the Saints give Ravens a blueprint to beat the Cowboys? Quick passes behind the pressure and speed in the middle of the field, running to the left. Look, the Saints look insane right now in the first 2 weeks. Talking about a team that has shocked me is the New Orleans Saints. Great Flow says, Q says if Roquan is bad, Sonny said you're wrong. Okay, and with that, let's talk about the Browns game here. And guys, I have to apologize because the new kid is doing a thing.
Oh, yeah, you gotta take what you gotta do, man.
But let me talk here real quick because I saw a lot of people talking about this Browns game as LOL, Browns didn't do anything, LOL, right? And if we overlook the fact that Deshaun Watson is right, like we can come every week in here and say Deshaun Watson is not playing to the $230 million, which is the 188 says, right? Okay, fine. We can say that every game. Did he play great? No. But I think, and I understand, Q, that you said Sonny, this lowering your expectation, but at least, in my opinion, he did just enough to allow this defense to play well and keep it in the game, which for a team like the Jaguars will work. Now going forward, obviously, teams like Jaguars, which Jaguars are not trash, by the way. This is a statement for the defense. The defense played good against not an elite team, but against a good team, playoff caliber team. I'm not impressed. I had never really been impressed with the prince, as they call him,
Trevor
Lawrence.
Lawrence.
Yeah, never been super impressed with him, but whatever. He's not bad. He's not a trash quarterback. He's a good quarterback. And this team is good. So that defense, how they played, I personally thought it was good. I thought they played well. I thought they did what they needed to do. And on the offensive side, well, Deshaun Watson at least didn't crap the bed, which, again, that wasn't the standards that I understand Browns fans wanted from Deshaun Watson. When they traded him and coming into the season, but at this point, this is what you need to take until whatever he has right now, and you're hoping that he can get better. He wasn't terrible in the sense that he didn't cost you the game, right? He could have a game that he threw 2 picks, and now we're talking about you lost instead of you won, right? So if you're a team and you're thinking, well, the Browns are going to be a pushover because of Deshaun Watson, and you, especially, I heard this from a couple of Steelers fans. Again, I work with a lot of Steelers fans and not a lot of Browns fans. You're literally talking about essentially the same, right? If Deshaun Watson's floor right now is what the ceiling looked to be, in my opinion, at Justice Fields last week against an inferior team and 2 premium defense, so I don't understand why you're talking here. The blueprint right now that the Browns are doing is winning on defense with a way better, more efficient running game, which the Steelers don't have. So that being said, that defense still legit, defense still good, and yeah, they need to fix Watson, or they need to do something in the quarterback position. Yeah, I mean I don't want to beat that horse, but I don't know. I thought the defense looked better. Judy, look, one thing that people were talking about, Judy's gonna be trash. Look how trash he was in the Broncos. I thought Judy had a great game. Cooper,
well.
Cooper seems to be off this on a start of the season, right? Whatever, it's 2 games, but Judy, that's great. If Judy can play this and Coop can come to his senses and play how he was playing last year, you have a squad with 2 great receivers. So that being said, like I was impressed about the victory. I know some people won't. I was impressed. I hate seeing it because obviously I was rooting, especially after what the Ravens were putting out there, I was rooting for everybody to lose. But anyway, I have to go, guys. Thank you. We'll see you next week. The guys here will finish, but I have to go. Take care, guys.
All right, see you, Sonny.
So
Yeah,
basically,
my questions. Go ahead, Keith.
Go ahead. What's your question?
No. Go ahead, bro.
Okay, so my thing with the Browns game this week, passing wise, last week against the Dallas Cowboys, they had a negative 22 expected points percentage or something like that, like on expected points. This week they were at 0.89 minus, which means they were neutral in this game, right? So Deshaun took what was there and nothing more in that game, which is fine when you're talking about him coming off of that game that he had last week. It was a significant improvement from that. It's a delicate balance that you have right now of comparing what Deshaun Watson did in week 1 to what he did in week 2 versus what you want the expectations to be. And I think the key here is the phrase that we're using, right? It was a step in the right direction with Deshaun Watson. But just because you make one step in the right direction don't mean you stop walking. You got to keep moving, right? You got to keep making progress and strides in that direction for any of that to matter. And, you know, if we're talking about this being one of Watson's best performances of the year, then it's cooked. He's going to be looked at as one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. But if we're talking about this as a kind of background filler performance for him, then, you know, I think you're in a much better place. Ultimately, the season's going to tell us where he lands on that chart. This was definitely more on the neutral side of that chart versus the chaotic bad that he gave us in week 1. So we'll see what week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6 provides us. And if you're a Browns fan, like I know some Browns fans really want to go on a victory lap after that victory last week, but it ain't the time to do a victory lap about the quarterback because we need weeks to dig Deshaun Watson out of that hole that he dug himself in week 1 with that performance, and that being the 3rd time that he's played at that low of a level. what we saw here was kind of what he was doing. It's like on the lower end of what he was doing for most of 2023. When you look at like the Tennessee game last year, the Arizona game last year, and the Baltimore game last year, this would definitely be at the bottom of those, but it's in that same range of plays. So you would hope this is him picking up where he left off last year, and you can build from that. We'll see what Deshaun Watson is going forward. But like the one chatter mentioned, he is being paid $230 million. The goal isn't for Deshaun Watson just to be serviceable or passable or even just good. The goal is for Deshaun Watson to be great. And so far, it hasn't been that. But we'll see, right? This buys him more time, because if he would have dropped another stanker like he did in week 1, I think we'd be sitting here talking about if the Browns need to play Jameis Winston or not. So he bought himself some more time. We'll see what that throws itself into. That's where I'm at with Deshaun Watson. We'll see what next week takes, and we'll take it one step at a time with his evaluation. As far as the rest of the Browns go, I thought the run game was significantly improved. Like Sonny mentioned, Jerry Jeudy looked really nice out there. Amari Cooper having a slow start to the season, I expect him to turn that around. He's had a couple of games like this every year. It's the first time he's done it the first 2 games of the season. So I expect him to turn that around. And then defensively, this team's pretty good. I want to see what they look like against a team that's a little bit more familiar with them, right? Because I think it's easy to beat these teams that haven't played you or play well defensively against these teams that don't really see what the Browns do a ton. It's not difficult, but when you're going up against teams that seen you like 6 times, then it becomes a lot more difficult. So we'll see what's going on there. Myles Garrett dealing with a foot injury, so he's not playing at as high as the level as you would want to see him play. Still got a strip sack in this game, but I think pass rush overall, it really woke up in the 4th quarter, but it hasn't been the hellscape that it was last year. So I do think that they need to get that stepped up, and Myles needs to get healthy in order to keep his impact on the game the same. But you know what? We were talking about linebacker play for a very long time. And you know who's starting to look like an elite linebacker? Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. He is looking great. Run stopping. He's getting TFLs without blitzing. He's able to make plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's a factor on this team, and a big one. And it's fortunate the Browns are able to extend him, because it looks like he's going to be worth a hell of a lot more money going forward. But yeah, overall, this was a fine win for the Cleveland Browns. You don't want this to be a standout win or anything like that, but it was a fine win for the Cleveland Browns against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I think this is something to build off of, and how we feel about this win, much like week 1, will really be determined on how they play going forward. Again, some things to look at this that are pretty good. Jerome Ford, I thought, looked really good in this game. Same thing with Deontay Foreman. Now, Foreman, unfortunately, had a lot of his bigger runs taken away because of penalties after the fact that weren't really crucial to the gaps that were created that he used. So he probably should have had, I think he ended the game with 30 yards, Ace, but he probably should have had at least 15 more to that. But unfortunately, penalties got in the way. I liked how he ran. I like the Browns run schemes there. Yeah, I think this Browns team has a base to build off of. We'll see if they continue to do that going forward. But there's a reason I'm not saying the Browns should be charging for first place right now, because I think we got a lot to fix internally about the offense and even about the defense before this team is at peak form. I don't think this team's even close to playing their best football yet.
Yeah, I think when I saw this game, I think the Browns did what they needed to do in this game, which was get out with a win. Watson didn't turn the ball over. I think that they closed out this game, because I was watching this one. This one went down to like the end. Browns defense held. And I think that was the story of this football game, was the Browns defense, right? Bouncing back after the week 1 performance against the Cowboys, where the offense basically left them out to dry. And this was a situation where the offense did just enough to give them something to allow the defense to really take over the game. The funny thing is, while I'm looking at this team, right, they kind of seem like cousins of the Pittsburgh Steelers, depending on how Deshaun Watson plays, right? You got a strong defense that's able to kind of run the game and lead you to victories there. But based on Deshaun Watson, that kind of that's like the factor there that kind of determines where this team goes because they
Can I
have
add
the
something
weapons.
to that?
Go ahead.
That is the big issue I have right now with the offense is that we got to win games like the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? Like,
Yeah.
as much as we clown on the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense stinking, the fact is that we got to win games almost identically to how they have to win it. So there's no way that this is one of the most expensive offenses in football, right? Amari Cooper's getting paid, Jerry Jeudy's getting paid, the whole offensive line's getting paid. David Njoku, who's hurt right now, is getting paid. Like Deshaun Watson is most certainly getting paid. Nick Chubb is getting paid. That is the big concern, is that all of that investment in the offense, and we're still having to win games, like how Pittsburgh has to win games. And no disrespect to Pittsburgh, and I know they're going to take it as disrespect. You look at that offense's roster, you look at this Browns roster and the accomplishments on this Browns offense's roster versus theirs. It's a world of difference. They're not even close. But the fact that we have to win games the same way as them is a bit of a concern. And that's why I'm not going to get excited about this team being able to do what we hope they could do in the offseason until I get evidence that this offense can get you to a point where you're not winning games like how Pittsburgh has to with their anemic offense.
Yeah, so I think that's the only thing is we've got to see, like he was saying, like you got to see more signs of life from the offense. The defense is there, though. We know that the defense is there. We know that the defense is going to be there. And I think that we got some good signs if you're a Browns fan from seeing the run game take a step forward this week with Jerome Ford having a nice yards per carry there. They also had, I think, what was it? It's Dante Foreman, right? Dante Foreman's the backup, so they've got that 1-2 duo there. You're getting good dividends from Jerry Jeudy, but you just have to see a little bit more from Deshaun. You don't want Deshaun to be the guy that loses you the game, right? But you still want to see him be able to elevate, and maybe we'll see more once Njoku gets back, because Njoku's on my fantasy team, so I need him back. I've got some stock in Njoku, so I need him to come back and do his thing. But at the end of the day, this was a game where you needed to bounce back. You needed to have Deshaun not play a bad game. He didn't play an amazing game, but didn't play a bad game so that you can get some of that noise to quiet down, right? Because after that week 1 performance that he had, you start hearing the media talk and stuff like this. This was a situation where they were able to kind of control that a little bit. Not to say that it's going to really diminish it for the rest of the season, but it's good to not have to hear this week talks about Deshaun Watson, talks about the contract. Like I'm getting random notifications that they're talking about updates are being made about the contract. So those are the distractions. You get a win, you get to concentrate on football, and you move on to the next week. And the more times that you win and you guys have performances like this where Deshaun doesn't have any kind of bad performance, you're probably not going to hear about it. And so I think this is what the Browns needed, especially this early, especially for something like that to happen week 1. You just want to build off of that, move forward, and kind of quiet some of the noise. And I think that they were able to do that within this game. But the biggest thing was the defense. And I know at one point we kind of talked about that supporting cast there on the defensive line. Those guys are starting to step up as well outside of just Myles Garrett. So that defense is going to be what it is. So Jim Schwartz and that defense did what it took to win this game. Deshaun was able to manage it, was able to get in there. And then I think you look to build going forward, but that's a big win when the rest of the teams in the division outside of Pittsburgh loses. So if you're a Cleveland Brown right now at 1-1, you're looking to build up off of that. And that's anytime I'm watching and my team wins, and I'm sure all of us do this, you're always looking at that divisional opponent to see if they lose that game or not. So the fact that they were able to leapfrog the Bengals and the Ravens right now, even though it's early in the season, was a huge feat for them. They just have to keep that momentum going, especially in this division where everything is, for the most part, tight. I think we've got one more super chat.
Yeah, and then to your point, one point you made earlier, look, the Browns play the Giants, the Raiders, and the Commanders in their next 3 games. And those all feel winnable for this team, even if they're struggling a bit on offense. But then after that, you play the Eagles, the Bengals, the Ravens, the Chargers, the Saints, the Steelers, all back to back to back to back to back. So by the time you get to that Eagles game, you got to be at a point offensively where we're not talking about having to have Deshaun Watson just play well enough. Like we need Deshaun Watson to be at the very least legitimately and reliably good in order to kind of get through that stretch above water.
Yep, nah, for sure. Got one here from the 188. He says Pittsburgh is better than Cleveland at quarterback. Cleveland is better than Pittsburgh at running back, wide receiver, and offensive line. I don't know when you guys are playing, so maybe y'all will get that hashed out by that point.
Yeah,
But I
look, the
think, like you
Steelers
were
going to lose
saying,
like 2 games in like in October, and then we'll never hear from these Steeler fans again.
Yep. So we'll see. Yeah, it's gonna be a interesting year. You had mentioned the Saints there. They've been a big surprise. I mean, obviously it's just through 2 weeks, but I heard something that was along the lines of they have scored on every single possession on offense they've been on.
They scored 11 touchdowns.
That is insane, and it's Kubiak's son, right? That's the offense coordinator.
Yeah, Clint.
Clint sounds like he's gonna be a future head coach probably in the next coming year, if not this season. We'll see if they can keep it up.
Hell, the Jaguars might hire him right now.
They might need to. A Sid Brooks here says the whole North, the Steelers quarterback and running back team. What this has been AFC North Talk. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Also, feel free to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. We're also going to be trying to drop some more content outside of just the show. So be on the lookout for that. That should be coming within the next couple of weeks. We'll have some individual videos with some of our takes there. But then, as you guys know, you guys can tap in with us. We're live on Wednesdays at 4 p.m., Fridays at 6 p.m. We're live, so make sure you show up, show out, and send us in your super chats. But thank you guys for listening in. I am Ace. He's Quincy. Sonny was here with us as well. We are AFC North Talk. Thanks to you guys for listening in.